Hello everybody, it's the Warhipster here, coming at you with another Codex Chaos Demons book review, and today we are looking at the Book of Contagion, sent to me early by Games Workshop to review for all of you. Not Contagions, Codex Chaos Demons. So I'm not going to make any illness, vomit, cold or mask jokes. I'm just not that funny. But do like this video and let me know what you think in the comments below, and if you're feeling really generous, subscribe so we can spread the videos of Warhipster worldwide. That's the only one you're getting. Alright, if you're ready, then I'm ready, so let's do this. Let's take a look at the Book of Contagion.
There joy turns to horror, want become need, become obsession. Surging sinuous across the field of war, their every caress is a knife thrust. Their every sighing exhalation a howl that bursts hearts and shatters bones. Hideously beautiful, savagely delicate, they promise only delightful misery, garbed in the desperate finery of unattainable fulfillment.
You know the deal by now. Exalted Great Unclean Ones are a thing, Rotigus can't be exalted, only one exalted ability each, and you can't exalt each Great Unclean One more than once. Check. They cost points, and weirdly, starting with bountiful gifts for 25 points. At the end of the battle round, if this model is on the battlefield, you can retain up to 2 unspent Warp Storm points. Boom. Done. What, you want the others? Okay, fine. Hideous Visage for 20 points gives you an aura of 6 inches, and everything is -1 leadership characteristic, and subtract 1 from combat attrition. Presumably this stacks with the demonic ability, so that's pretty cool. Finally, we have Revoltingly Resilient for 30 points, which gives you -1 damage to a minimum of 1 in combat, which is, well, pointless? Except it's not, because it costs 30 points. You get a page of stratagems, which include Revolting Constitution for 1 CP/2 CP, depending on power level, and for this you get Transhuman Physiology on your Plague Bearers. It might sound weird, as Plague Bearers can't possibly be more than power level 12, but remember that Plague Bearers includes Plague Drones, but more on those later. Swarming Flies for 2 CP gives a friendly Demonica Nergal unit -1 to hit in either the fight or shooting phase. And final highlight in the stratagems page is Slime Trail, which for 1 CP gives a 4+ dice roll chance to prevent an opponent falling back from Horticulus Slimax or a unit of Beasts of Nergal. It's cool, but it's not guaranteed. The Warp Rot discipline has some spice in it, and I think it's worth flying through all 6 powers, so bear with me. Here we go. Stream of Corruption. It does D3 mortal wounds to the closest enemy unit unless the unit has 11 models or more, in which case it's D3 + 2 mortal wounds. Fleshy Abundance. Pick a friendly core unit and add 1 to the toughness characteristic of models in that unit. Nergal's Rot. Roll 2d6 for each enemy unit within 6 inches of this Psyker. If the result is higher than the highest toughness characteristic of models in that unit suffers D3 mortal wounds. If the result is double the highest toughness, then that unit suffers D6 mortal wounds instead. Ouch. Shriveling Pox. Pick an enemy unit in 18 inches. They're -1 toughness. Virulent Blessing. Pick a friendly core unit. Add 1 to the damage characteristic of melee weapons they're equipped with. Finally, we have Malodorous Paul. Pick an enemy unit within 18 inches. It loses objective secured and cannot perform actions. I mean, to me they're all decent, but you'll probably want to take Shriveling Pox, Nergal's Rot, and Malodorous Paul. But honestly, Malodorous Paul is probably the best of all 6. It's just, oh, so very gamey. As per usual, 6 Warlord Traits are here. The first 3 a Herald can use, and Greater Demons can choose from all 6. And let's be honest, Overflowing Fecundity is the best one here. It's transhuman on a Great Unclean One. However, you're not going to meet much Strength 10 weaponry, and you're not going to meet much Strength 20 or 18 weaponry. So is it really that good? The other option is Heaving Mass to gain 2 extra wounds on your Warlord. It's simple, it's effective, and well, what's not to love? Especially if you combine it with the relic Endless Gift. At the start of your command phase, the bearer regains up to a number of lost wounds equal to the current battle round number, which is just great, especially if you combine it with a number of other abilities which we'll get to shortly. So it's time for the data sheets then, and as always we start with the named greater demon here, Rotigus, the Rainfather. Rotigus has an insane profile now. He has 7-inch movement, he has a weapon skill of 2+, a ballistic skill of 3+, strength 7, toughness 9, wounds 24, 6 attacks, leadership 10, and a demon save of 5+ and 4+. He has a strength 6, 2d6, -3, damage 1 flamer weapon. His Fanged Maw at strength user -1, damage 2 malefic. His Gnarl Rod is a mighty strike, strength +1, AP -3, damage 3, and an unmodified hit roll of 6 automatically wounds the target. Or the Sweeping Blow is strength user -2, damage 1, but you make 2 hit rolls instead of 1 for each attack. He also has the Nurgling Claws at Malefic 7, strength 2, AP 0, damage 1. It won't do much, but it does something? His abilities include Deluge of Nergal, which means every time he manifests a psychic power, if the result of the psychic test was 7+, the closest enemy unit within 24 inches suffers D3 mortal wounds. Nice. He also lets friendly Nergal core units reroll 1s to hit. He can cast 2, deny 2, and knows 2 powers from the Warp Rot discipline. He's much tougher than he was before at 320 points, but is he worth it? I'm not sure. Let's look at the Great Unclean One, and you can decide. The Great Unclean One has a similar stat line of move 7, weapon skill 2+, ballistic skill 3+, strength 7, toughness 9, wounds 22, attack 6, leadership 10, and a demon save of 5+, 4+. So 2 less wounds, but as discussed, you can get those 2 extra wounds with a Warlord trait. He also has a flamer attack, but it's d6 shots and strength 5 -2. He has the Bile Sword option, which is better than Rotigus's stick, or the option of the Bell, which is worse in combat, but has a cool ability. He also has the option between the Plague Flail or the Bile Blade, and the Bile Blade is really useful for a bonus to psychic tests at the cost of a mortal wound to himself, which you can't cancel out because Disgustingly Resilient isn't a thing anymore. The Doomsday Bell lets you pick a friendly Plague Bearer's core unit in the command phase within 12 inches to be replenished. You can return 1 destroyed model with its full wounds remaining, or you can return D3 infantry models instead. They can't appear in engagement range of any enemy units unless those enemy units are already in engagement range of that unit. So that's really useful. He also lets friendly Nergal core units within 6 inches reroll a hit roll of 1. He knows 2, denies 1, and casts 2 psychic powers. So not as many denies as Rotigus, but pretty good otherwise. Honestly, I suspect the way to go is to take 2 Great Unclean Ones and leave Rotigus at home. Kit 1 Great Unclean One for combat and the other with the Bell, because returning friendly Plague Bearer models is very, very useful. So, with that in mind, let's look at the Heralds. Poxbringer, Spoilpox Scrivener, Epidemius, Sloppity Bile Piper, and Horticulus Slimux. Nergal has something pretty unique here in that each of the Heralds does something different, and there's a decent reason to bring as many as you can, so let's do them one by one. Poxbringer is a Psyker who knows 1, casts 1, and denies 1 psychic power, which is handy to have. He helps friendly Nergal core units reroll 1s to wound, and then he has an ability to select a friendly Plague Bearer's core unit within 6 inches, and they get to add 1 to the damage characteristics of their weapon on an unmodified wound roll of a 6. Lovely. Spoilpox Scrivener is not a Psyker. He too lets friendly Nergal core units within 6 inches reroll 1s to wound, but in addition he has Keep Counting! Meet your quota! This translates as an ability that lets you select a friendly Plague Bearer's core unit within 6 inches of this model, and until the start of the next command phase they get +1 to hit in melee. They also gain Objective Secured. If they already had Objective Secured, they count as 2 models each. Dope. Epidemius isn't a Psyker either, but he does have a reroll 1s to wound aura. He also has the tally of pestilence. Whilst he's on the battlefield, keep a tally of how many models are destroyed by attacks made by Nergal units. At the start of each battle round, if there are 7 or more marks on that tally after making a Warp Storm roll, gain 1 additional Warp Storm point and reset the tally to 0. So this combined with an Exalted Greater Demon with bountiful gifts, you can generate some serious Warp Storm pointage. Next up, Sloppity Bile Piper. He's not a Psyker either. He has reroll 1s to wound, but he also has Jolly Gut Pipes. In your command phase, select a Great Unclean One, Nurgling, or Plague Bearer's core unit and add 1 to the move characteristic and add 1 to advance and charge rolls for that unit. Nice. He also has Disease of Mirth, which in the morale phase means you select an enemy unit within 12 inches and roll 3d6. If you beat the enemy's leadership characteristic, select one of 2 things. No actions for them, and if doing one, it immediately fails. No obsec for you. This is powerful. Sloppity is a must-take in my opinion. Horticulus Slimux is our last Herald, and he is also not a Psyker, and also reroll 1s to wound aura. He lets a friendly beast of Nergal or Plague Drone unit within 9 inches reroll charges and +1 to hit in combat, which is of course very, very good. Seed the Garden of Nergal is also here, which at the end of the movement phase, if you are wholly within area terrain, you can select that area terrain to be seeded. If you do so, until the end of the battle, the enemy treats that area terrain as difficult ground, and if they end any type of move, excluding pile-in or consolidation moves within that area terrain feature, roll 1d6. On a 2+, the enemy suffers d3 mortal wounds. See? They all do something different, which is cool. It does mean that you can tech your army out to do a very specific thing. I think Sloppity is an auto take, and if you want drones and beasts of Nergal, Horticulus Slimux is a must-have too. Spoil Poxbringer is very, very, very good and useful too, especially for making an objective much harder to take off of your Plague Bearers. They all have a place though, which is really, really good to see here. So characters aside, we need to talk about the bread and butter of the army, Plague Bearers. Plague Bearers suffer from the same problem the rest of the demons have suffered from. You only take them in units of 10. They also suffer from losing Disgustingly Resilient, as all of the demons have suffered from losing their faction abilities. However, it's not all bad. They're toughness 5, 2 wounds, 2 attacks each, and their weapons are now -2. On an unmodified hit roll of a 6 with a Plague Sword, it automatically wounds the target. So of all the troops so far, Bloodletters and Pink Horrors to be precise, the Plague Bearers have gotten a massive improvement. They also have a 5+4+ save, which is decent. However, there's no -1 to hit here built into the datasheet. That's gone, because you can't have more than 20 models, because you can only take them in units of 10. Is this a big glow up? Yes. Is it worth 150 points? I don't know. They still move slow, although you can make them a bit faster, and they're still going to be susceptible to being gunned down, as everything in the game is. They're twice as resilient as they were before, but with the sheer amount of damage to weaponry out there in the wild, I don't know if it's enough. Only time will tell. You might think you can get around this with Nurglings, but it is not so. They are still troops, but they can't be used to fill out a compulsory slot in a detachment. So if you take a battalion, you have to have 3 units of Plague Bearers before adding any Nurglings. I mean, I agree with it. Plague Bearers should be your go-to, so, you know. But 150 points! Beasts of Nergal are, however, all-star units in the whole book. They've gone up from 35 points a model to 80 points a model, which is a huge climb, but just listen to this new stat line. In fact, read along with me. Movement 6 inches, weapon skill 4+, strength 6, toughness 6, wounds 7, attack 6, and leadership 7, with a demon save of 5+4+. That's a huge climb up from the strength 4, toughness 5, wounds 5, D6 attacks they were before. Their weapons are also now strength user -2 damage 2, and an unmodified hit roll of 6 does 2 mortal wounds, and the attack sequence ends. This is a huge monster stat line. They are now 80 points, so it's absolutely justified, but they also can be taken in units of 1 to 3, not 1 to 9, so it's much easier on the old wallet. They have a 6-inch heroic intervention as if they were characters, which is just insane, and at the end of each phase, if a model in this unit has lost any wounds but was not destroyed, that model regains all of its lost wounds. What? These guys are going nowhere, and they're going everywhere. Stay away, because they also explode if they die. So that's the beasts. They're undoubtedly the best thing in the Book of Contagion. You can't bring them back if they die, but your opponent is going to have a tough time getting rid of them. Seriously, they're just so good. The second best thing in this book is the Plague Drones, who can be brought back with the bell from the Great Unclean One if one of them dies, and that's going to be hard for your opponent to do as well, with toughness 6 and 5 wounds each. They also move 10 inches and have 2 attacks each. But then they have the malefic weapons, foul mouthparts or prehensile proboscis. The foul mouthparts are probably the best on balance here, being strength 5 minus 2 damage 2, and that means no affecting those stats. The prehensile proboscis is malefic 4 but only damage 1 and strength 4. It's your choice, but I would probably choose quality over quantity here because I can use my heralds to buff these guys. They are Plaguebearer core units after all. Lastly, we have the Feculent Gnarlmaw. It does mortal wounds, it can be deployed anywhere on the table, and it can generate warp storm points like the Skull Altar. It doesn't make your Plaguebearers the Flash anymore, but it's pretty useful to probably bring one. Although, for 5 points more, you can bring another Beast of Nergal, so there's that. Anyway, there you have it, the Book of Corruption in all its glory. So let's take a look at a list idea I have. We have a Great Unclean One, Sloppity Bile Piper, Spoilpox Scrivener, and Horticulus Slimax. We have 4 units of Plague Bearers, we have 2 units of 2 Beasts of Nergal, and we have 3 units of 3 Plague Drones. This list comes out at 1980 points total. This list goes for specific buffs on specific things at specific times. As good as the Beasts of Nergal are, and they are so good, having too many of them will limit you in what you're capable of. The Plague Bearers will accompany the bell-wielding Great Unclean One, and the Beasts will drop in from Deep Strike around Horticulus Slimax, who is accompanying the Plague Drones, for that much needed speed in the list. Taking units of 3 Plague Drones is a bit of a risk as they're not as strong as the Beasts, but they're tough enough to spread out, and of course they can be brought back by the Great Unclean One's bell if need be. Warp Storm points wise, Dark Invigoration won't bring back Plague Bearers as they have 2 wounds each, so you would only be healing units in the army that have lost a wound. You might have some Plague Bearers here and there on 1 wound, but it's unlikely, and the Beasts heal themselves. The argument there is to drop too many things for another Great Unclean One, but at that point you might as well kit the ones you'd have for combat to make up for the lack of units on the table. So there we have the Book of Corruption in the books. They're the most improved across the army rather than their greater demons, but they suffer from a few weaknesses in terms of resiliency, which is an odd thing to say. They're tougher and better, do way more damage than before, but the book is balanced against the other books in here, so whilst Khorne, Tzeentch and Slaanesh can all really benefit from Dark Invigoration, Nergal just can't. I'd need to see some stats, but they're pretty good. I'd say probably 2nd place in the book, which just leaves Slaanesh, which we will be talking about in the next video. And there we have it, folks. This is the 3rd book in the series, and also the 4th part of the series on Codex Chaos Demons. We're nearly there. We just have 1 more to go, and as mentioned, it is the Book of Excess, otherwise known as Slaanesh. So do join me for that one very soon. If you enjoyed this video, you love the channel, and you want to support me further like these legends and bosses on the screen before you, you can do so. Head to patreon.com/warhipster or head to ko-fi.com/warhipster. Alternatively, you can now become a YouTube channel member by heading to the channel page and clicking on the join button just here, exactly like these awesome folks have done. And if you just want to shoot me a little thanks just because you really love this video, you can click on the thanks button just below this video. Don't forget to share it, like it, comment on it, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. And to make sure you stay up to date, don't forget to click the bell icon. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all very soon in the next one. Happy wargaming.